Greetings and welcome to the Ask the Soul Doctor show. I'm Mark Pitstick, your host on HealthyLife.net radio. After working with many thousands of people over the last 40 years, I've assembled sensible, evidence-based answers to the most commonly asked questions about life, death, and afterlife. And each month on this show, I interview experts in consciousness studies to share their answers. We don't claim to have all the answers or the only answers, but we do have some good answers that have helped many people make more sense of their Earth experience. And with us today to help answer those vital questions is Dr. PMH Atwater, one of the original researchers in the field of near-death studies. Dr. Atwater has died herself 3 times. She is the author of 10 books and has interviewed over 4,000 child and adult near-death experiencers. Her website is pmhatwater.com, and be sure to visit there to sign up for her newsletter to learn more about her exciting research. So without further ado, PMH, welcome.
Well, it's good to, I stand here with fear and trembling because I'm wondering, your questions, wow.
Yeah. Well, that's why you're on the show, because you've done your homework, and I'm sure you can answer them. So let's just dive right in so people can hear. And the first one that, as you know, so many people ask is, who am I?
Well, I'm going to quote from my book, Future Memory, a few pages, because it's truly true, and it's how I feel, and it's what I know. I truly am an immortal soul, an extension of the divine, who temporarily resides within a carbon-based form of electromagnetic pulsations that produce a solid appearing overlay of behavior patterns more commonly referred to as a personality. So I'm a soul. I'm residing in a carbon-based body that consists of, electromagnetic pulsations, and my job, the idea of who I really am is not my personality. My personality, the body I'm wearing, enables me to carry out the plan. But who I am is I am. And what I am and what everybody else is are cells in the greater body, what I call the one God.
I like it. And, of course, once we know who we are, the next question that invariably is asked is, well, why am I here? In other words, if I'm a soul, why would I want to visit a place like Earth?
That's a really big one. Why would I want to visit Earth? Because I believe, and what I've come to realize, is that we are all here. We have a job to do. We have a mission to perform. We're part of a greater plan. We do not arrive, we process. We do not learn, we remember. We do not become, we are. And to get to that point where we understand that, where that is meaningful. One of the wonderful things I realize now is we enter this world on an in-breath, we leave this world on an out-breath, back and forth, motion and rest. It's part of our comings and goings, whether they be tragic, whether they be happy, doesn't matter. Part of our comings and goings. It's what we're here for. Some of us stay for a few hours, a few months, maybe a few years. Some of us stay here for decades. But all of us are important. Every breath is important. We're all part of that greater matrix, that greater expression.
Mm-hmm. Now, PMH, in your experience, are there lessons that souls can achieve in a place like Earth that they perhaps can't in more ethereal realms?
Well, sure. Absolutely. What I've heard from thousands of people, what I learned myself is The curriculum is over there. When I'm talking over there, I'm talking the other side of life. Over there. However you want to define that. That's where the curriculum is. But we get our muscles over here. This is where we take that curriculum and act it out. This is where we work with it. This is where we accomplish things from that. Either we learn or, we muff up. But we're still forming those muscles. This to me is what the earth life is all about. It's where we choose, where we experience, where we kick the door in, where we get mad, where we love, where we have joy, where we heal and help and grow. And that's part of why we're here. We're here to gain muscles.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned earlier that, as we all know, sometimes people live just a few minutes or many, many years. What is your understanding about why a soul may come in as a child and pass on at a very early age in Earth years?
Well, we can use the popular answer, and that is reincarnation, and we're here to perform or fill out unfinished business. This idea of unfinished business, I think, has a lot to do with it. But, why are we really here? What are we accomplishing? Let me just divert a little bit here to a couple of examples. Mm-hmm. This one fellow who has the opening quote in my book, The New Children and Near-Death Experiences. And he had his near-death experience inside of his mother's vagina as he was being born. He remembers it, has drawn pictures of it, and it has been his life. So here's a baby in the process of being born right inside of his mother's vagina. Another thing I found so interesting is in my research base of 277 kids, half of them could remember their birth, and clearly 1/3 could remember pre-birth, and that goes back to 7 months in utero when that appeared to begin. So we're talking about beings who are fully aware of the process, who are fully aware of what they're coming into. We get it again and again in near-death research. These experiencers, be they adult or child, that say, I know why I'm here. I realized this as a spark, choosing my DNA as the cells in my body came together inside my mother's womb.
What about the next question? What happens after I die? So many people wonder about.
You just walk through a doorway or shift in consciousness. It's not, it's simple. And every single person who has gone that route and come back says the same thing. None of them say something different. It is a shift in consciousness. It's like going through a doorway.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Now, what about the range of experiences a person can have depending on how they were on Earth? Let's say Mother Teresa versus Adolf Hitler.
But we all have our parts. And who's to say why? I don't think anybody can say why. We can guess. But I don't think anybody knows all the answers. But what I've learned as a policeman's daughter, remember I'm a cop's kid, raised in a police station. So I've seen a lot of life. My former husband was a crop duster. So a lot of planes crashed, I've seen life from a lot of different points of view, not just as one who died and came back at 3 experiences in 3 months, or as a researcher. And what I have seen consistently is somehow the after effects of what happened led to good. So that causes me to sit back and say, wait a minute here. The after effects, and sometimes those can be years in the making, lead to greater good. Even if people are tortured, even if people die by the thousands, and of course they're doing it right now, horrible things are happening, always have had. You know, I can remember Pearl Harbor, and very clearly. I grew up with ration and, you know, victory gardens and all this kind of stuff. I've always seen horror and massive death. And still I can say, always, this leads to good.
Good deal. Now, having nearly died yourself 3 times, of course, you're more qualified to answer this question, what happens after I die, more than anybody on the planet. That might be a record.
No, the record is 23.
Really?
In my research base, one man had 23 in a lifetime.
So what can you tell us briefly about the light? How wonderful is that to embrace the light, to come back home?
Briefly? You gotta be kidding. The other side. Different people go to different realms and different dimensions. Let's understand that. Not everybody has a more in-depth experience. Some have more of a gentle or quick experience. They don't go that deep. I was one that went deep. My last 2 were very, very radical. That light is greater than the light of 10,000 suns. So we're not speaking about a yard light here. It's a light that knows your name, knows all about you, and can converse with you. There is lots of things that you can meet. Some people meet, you know, loved ones who died and gone on before, including pets. Let's put the animals in there. Some people just have a quick in and out of body experience. You know, one of the things you learn is that you really do have 360-degree vision once you're out of the body. It's like, wow, I can see everything. And a lot of people say everything is simultaneous. So you come to realize that creation as we know it is incomplete. That there's a heck of a lot more to this. And there's lots and lots of levels. When I died the third time, one of the things that happened to me is that I was greeted by a voice. Now, this voice, I call it the voice like none other. It's the kind of voice that speaks with thunder. And it's not like it's not like a guide, it's not like a guardian, it's not like an angel. Forget all that stuff. This voice was so powerful. It was beyond power. And it said to me, and I quote, "You are to do the research. One book for each death. You are to test revelation." And so I came back with that mission. Ooh, I'm to do all this stuff. I'd never heard of Raymond Moody, never heard of life after life, never heard of any of that stuff. You know, what's near death? It's like 3 or 4 years into my research, I met Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and she told me.
Great. Well, I got the soundbite I was looking for, which is the light stronger than 10,000 suns, which is awesome. So we've kind of segued into the next question, which is regarding this light, higher power, source energy, whatever you want to call it. Could you say some more about your understandings, please, of what this is like?
It's not a person, place, or thing. It's not a man or a woman. It's not some god or goddess sitting on a throne. So let's do away with all that stuff. That source that we come from, that intelligence, is so beyond any word we can use that we fumble. How do you describe that? And all the experiencers face the same dilemma. How do you describe that? It's not even an energy. It's not even an ectoplasm. It's not even spirit. It's beyond all of that. It's beyond anything you can conjure or pretend. Today, I no longer believe in God. I know God. I breathe God. God is my next breath. God is my every breath.
I like it. I know this is stretching, trying to describe such amazing cosmic phenomena in a short period of time. But you're really doing a super job. Well, one other question about that. So what do you consider, in other words, some people say God is like all the oceans on the earth, and we each are like a drop of water in the ocean, integral parts, and so part of that phenomena. Does that analogy hold true for...
Well, that's good as an analogy, but it's still form-based.
Sure.
And God is not part of form, any form. You really can't compare God to the greatest ocean in the world, and we are drops in it, because God is greater than that. God is bigger than that. We look at our religions and our spiritual people and our spiritual visionaries and our mediums and all these people who have died and gone before. God is bigger than what they describe afterward. And it's because our language can't define that. We can't say in words what it is, because we don't have a word.
Got it, yeah. Okay, so the next question that invariably arises, so we have this huge God, this vast phenomena, this source of light and love. So why is there so much suffering on Earth? Is that the best setup that the divine
well, we do
with?
that. Those are our choices. Not everything that happens to us in life is by our choice, as long as we are in a body on a personality level. But if we go to the soul level, the greater I am, the greater who we are, then again there seems to be purpose and direction. There does seem to be choice. So, and it's one of the things I learned from being a near-death experiencer. Like this one guy, he's wheelchair-bound. He has this great chronic disease. I forget now what it was. And he said very calmly, with a smile on his face, I have the privilege to be in this body to teach people that there really is such a thing as courage. I was born illegitimate. I had 5 fathers, 2 mothers. I wound up raising myself. I had polio. I had St. Vitus dance. I had rheumatic fever. You name it. I also was born with dyslexia and synesthesia at a time when school systems had never even heard of dyslexia, let alone synesthesia, which is conjoined senses. My experience of first grade was a horrible, horrible nightmare. I spent most of the first grade on a tall stool in front of the class wearing a tall conical hat that said dunce on it as an example of a bad child who told lies. And I learned from that the only time I was ever punished was when I told the truth. And the only time I was ever praised was when I turned was when I gave a lie. And it turned my life upside down. Certainly, I had a mixed up, just over-the-top kind of childhood. No, I wasn't tortured physically. I was tortured mentally. You know, what is it when you touch a table and you cannot depend on your description of touching that table? You don't even have environmental integrity. Because what you see and what you feel is opposite or far out from what anybody else feels. I was the only kid in school in the first grade who could see music, hear numbers, and smell color. That went over like a lead cloud.
Sure. So let me ask you this, PMH. So years later, would you change all that if you could, or was it worth the price, the suffering, the teasing, the judging, and so on, for how it helped you grow and serve others?
I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah.
And I went on to a lot more horrific stuff than that. I wouldn't change a thing. In fact, I had a moment. You know, I come from Idaho, so I'm a Westerner. I had a moment on a rock ledge overlooking Shoshone Falls, which is our biggest falls on the Snake River. And I was on this sheer ledge because I love that stuff. So I'm all by myself on the ledge, and I'm looking over at the falls. And as sure as can be, suddenly all of the people in my life since birth stood there. I was looking at them. The detractors, the people I loved, the people who saved me, the people who hurt me, the people who tortured me in one way or another, all of them were there. All of them. And I realized that it was all part of a plan. It was all part of a miracle. It was all part of what enabled me to be the person I am today. And I could look back at that and smile and thank God.
Sure, and that's one of the most important reasons to be spiritually awakened, so we know the nature of the game we're playing. We can remember it's a play, especially when we go through the tough parts. Well, speaking of tough parts, you know, many people have loved ones who pass on, and they wonder, will I see my departed loved ones again? And if so, how can I enhance communication with them now?
Well, first of all, I'll say for most people, not everyone, for most people, they see their loved ones and they pass over. And bear in mind, that means people and animals, both. So I can't say that everyone sees them. I can say that most people do. How can you contact them now? Bill Guggenheim wrote a wonderful book called Hello from Heaven. And he was able to show that well over 70% of the people in the United States, maybe 80%, received communication from their loved ones after they died. So I can say that this is a phenomenon that seems to be very natural. I can also say you can learn to do this through prayer and meditation, through visualization, through journaling, through just filling your heart with that love and that knowing. And whatever you sense or feel, that's probably that loved one responding.
So could you say a bit more, please, about maybe how more specifically people can communicate with their departed loved ones via meditation or visualization and journaling?
Well, talking to them. I think that makes a big difference. Of course, through prayer and meditation, sort of joining in that spirit sense, but just talking to them. You can talk to them out loud.
Sure.
You might even try journaling. That's wonderful. Dreams is an incredible way that most people, or at least the majority of people, use. And they do get that contact in the dream life. And sometimes you never do. And sometimes the communication will come through another person. Won't come through you. It won't come to you. And why not? I don't know. But I know it happens, and it happens a lot. You'll have your neighbor get your brother who died and he's died. You'll get your neighbor getting voice messages from him, not you. You're the one who wanted it.
Sure. Well, I think one of the big steps is just realizing no one really dies, that our departed loved ones are not so far away. They do want to communicate with us, and that way we have the peace, the calmness that enhances communication versus fear and anxiety, which disempowers it. And the next one is about ghosts and evil spirits. What are they?
Before I ever died, I launched a research project about psychic phenomena, mysticism, altered states of consciousness. And during that time frame, I was a ghostbuster. What I've found and what I've sensed and what I've seen is that very often there are troubled spirits. Sometimes when an individual dies, they don't go on. They seem to hang around in the netherworlds or the borderlands. There seems to be two reasons for this, or two basic reasons that I've found, is number one, because of a promise or something very strong, like a promise that they want to stay for whatever reason. And another one, and the other one is because they're lost. They just don't know. Now some die cursing someone. And then in in the spirit world, they seem to come back or are still infused with that anger and will haunt the individual. That does happen. We do have possession. We do have mixed up crazy spirits doing all kinds of funky things and sometimes not nice things. And that's why I give so many cautions to people who get into the Ouija board or who get into channeling or mediumship or crystal use or what have you. They really don't know what they're doing. And it's very helpful to get some classes or training to understand differences. What is the voice of ego? What is the voice of God? And these people seem to be very mixed up. I would say are still caught up in ego. And so they come back for whatever reason. Yes, you can protect yourself from this. You do through prayer and meditation. You do through taking care of yourself. You do it through understanding your own emotions and your own thoughts. That's a biggie.
Sure. Yeah, just as on Earth we need to protect ourselves and be wise, likewise with disembodied spirits, they're not all balanced. Well, what about, speaking of not doing something that's so balanced, what's your belief or experience about what happens to the soul or life force of a person who commits suicide?
Well, we confront this head on in near-death research. And what we've found with most of those people who committed suicide but came back, the majority of them had a very positive experience on the other side. And they come back resolved to take that experience, that passion, that learning, that strength, and use it to turn their lives around here and make their life better. There are some who come back who are still very angry and hurt and go on to lead a miserable life. So what about people who commit suicide? I can't say that for everybody it's wrong, because that's a very big statement to make, and evidence does not validate that. But I can say that most near-death experiencers, well, I would say the vast majority, maybe 99.9%, come back feeling that life is worthy, it is purposeful. Yes, they'd like to go back, but they don't, because they feel that there's something they need to accomplish on this side, and until they do, they will not be able to go back. But there are some near-death experiencers who do try suicide. You bet they do, especially with children. But most of them conclude they better stay here, they better stay in their body, because this is where the tests are, this is where the opportunities are, and it's better to stay.
Honor their incarnation. So what about the question of how can people best hear their inner self's voice and identify their highest purposes, why they're here on this planet at this time?
Well, I'm a great believer in prayer meditation. I don't think there is a better source, a better way. And there's lots of ways of meditating, as you well know. Contemplation, meditation, just being out in bright sunlight and relaxing and opening yourself up to the greater voice, protecting yourself and knowing that only that which is of God will come to you. So that's that little extra hooky-doo. Always affirm and know that only that which is of God, for your highest good, only that will come to you. And if you affirm that, if you know that, then all kinds of open consciousness, shifts in consciousness, flow states will certainly lead you there.
Well, listeners, you can see why I wanted to have Dr. Atwater on, especially when she gets on a roll, gets in the groove. This woman's done her homework, and she's been there herself. So nice answers. I appreciate it. How about this one? Some of us were raised in religions that taught about an eternal hell, perhaps only one way to God, there's only one true religion. Lots of things are sin, being gay, dancing, and there's a long list. So people ask now, decades later, how can they evolve beyond those religious teachings, and how can they try to affect change from within?
Well, certainly easily two-thirds of the people who have a near-death experience come back unable to go back to the traditional church. One-third stay in the church. But those that stay are really excited about staying because they want to rev up the church. They want to change the church. They want to help the church. They want to give it new energy. But, this is interesting. The two-thirds that leave, within about 10 years, they're back again. But they're back again at a different kind of church, most of them metaphysical churches, or different ways of reaching God and praying in group because they like to be with a like mind. Of course, some of them are loners. They never come back to that. Well, when we were talking about religion, I was drawn to the Science of Mind churches, or Church of Religious Science, because, hey, that just spoke to me. I was also drawn to unity churches. But I went back to church because I liked the group. I like the idea of the community of souls. So that's where I went back. I didn't go back to find God. I'd already done that. But the idea of, community. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. Religious science, science of mind, unity, Unitarian Universalist.
Oh, those are fantastic.
Some of the more enlightened denominations, Christian Science would be my top 5 probably. Well, how about all the things we've talked about? How can this help people deal with life's toughest challenges? I mean, let's face it, life on Earth is not easy at times. How have you found personally and with the people you've interviewed that these spiritual insights can help?
Well, you don't stay down long. You bounce back. Mm-hmm. It's not like you're still peeling onions, because you are. You're peeling one layer after another. I mean, it's not magic. Many near-death experiences come back facing bouts of depression and confusion because they can't handle it. They don't know what it is. They're very confused by it. And life as always becomes impossible for them. So it's really a tough thing to realize what happened to you and what you can do about it. It takes a while to get that confidence back, or any form of confidence that you can stand on your new understandings and it will work for you. For me, every day became a test or an opportunity to use what I knew to be true. And consistently it works. Do I still have down times? You bet I do. Had a downtime with a publisher just recently. And I did a little bit of crying. And then I thought, okay, kid, this will give you an opportunity to learn a new skill. So I grabbed that situation, turned it around. This is what a lot of us do. When that tough stuff comes, whether it's an automobile accident, we're hit, or we lose a child, or you burn dinner, whatever it is, most of us have learned to stop. Take a deep breath, swallow. When you do that, it clears the brain, it clears the heart, and you're able to take a step. And that step is positive. You're able to see that whatever is happening, how messy it is, you can deal with it. You can walk through it. One of the things I faced after I died, and I think this is really important for everybody to hear, I went through a lot of fear. I went through a lot of fear because, hey, these experiences come from trauma or death. I was one of those, or trauma or violence. I was one of those people that had to relearn how to crawl, how to stand, how to climb stairs, how to run, how to tell the difference between left and right, how to see properly, hear properly, and rebuild all my belief systems. And I learned this mantra. I'd like to give it to you. Fear is the mind killer. I will face my fear. When it has passed over me, around me, and through me, I will remain.
Very nice. And what you started off with earlier, you don't stay down long. I love that. What a great little phrase to use. And yes, many people have described this spiritual awareness. It doesn't take away all the grieving or pain or tough, but it lightens it. It certainly lightens it. Well, in our last few minutes, what can you share with listeners about how all these insights can help us make the world a better place?
By making ourselves a better place. By making ourselves better. You can't change the world. You can't change somebody else. The only person you can change is yourself. And it's very interesting to me when I observe this with others or within myself. when I change myself, I automatically start changing things around me, and those things change too. It's like taking a pebble and dropping it into a lake. You have all these ripples. So when you change yourself, yes, you are changing the world. Because we are the world. We are the children of the one God. We are the co-creators with the Creator. You know, when you realize who you are and agree to live it, that's the greatest power anybody can ever have.
And the world's various challenges, starvation and fighting and war and so on, can be addressed as more and more people awaken and lend their efforts even a bit to these causes.
You betcha. If you feel led to do something, get in there, you know, with both feet and all your heart. But if you feel led not to participate, then pull back, because there's always reasons. And you may not know that reason. That reason may not be given to you until later. I have learned to respect the guidance within me. And I always ask, is this appropriate for my highest good and the highest good of all concerned if I participate? Always ask for what is appropriate.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dr. Atwater, this hour has blown by. I know I've enjoyed hearing your answers, and I know many listeners will as well.